Hello out there, kings, queens, and everything in between. My name is Nati, and welcome to my reading castle. If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name's Nati, and I am a fellow bookworm trying to share my love for books. So let's get into the video. Today, I want to talk to you guys about 5 tips to help you read more. So if you're trying to get more into reading, if you don't know where to start, or if you're kind of in a reading slump. For those who don't know, a reading slump consists of a time in your life where you're too busy or your heart or your mind are not fully in the mood to read, so you're just in this kind of gray parenthesis, but that's okay. I'm here to give you some tips to help you get out of that or to get into the world of books. So let's get started. So tip number 1, the first thing I would recommend is looking up an exciting topic and or story. What does that mean? When you think of books, maybe you think, oh, well, I'm not interested in that. Or you think of history books. That is seldom the case. That's rarely ever the case. You have to find a book and a story or an author that speaks specifically to you. Let's say you like history, you're a history fanatic. There's a lot of history fiction. Let's say you're an action fanatic and you're like, well, I prefer movies over books. Have you thought of comic books? And before you say anything, no, they're not just for children. You'll find that a lot of comic books, and I would dare to say practically the majority, are made with adult in mind. It's kind of like a movie, but in your head. And you can see, and it's always fun to see the images and the details and the colors. And that's also its own form of artistry. So you don't have to be ashamed if you think of graphic novels. Maybe, oftentimes, if you have a favorite action movie, the screenwriters or the directors have some books or drew inspiration from somewhere. Maybe you could look into that. Let's say you even like cooking. Picking up a cookbook helps. And I know, you're gonna say, well, how is reading a recipe reading? First off, you're picking up a book leisurely, which means for pleasure. Second, with that kind of emotion of passing the pages and just taking your time to appreciate what's in it, your brain is gonna connect fun and happiness and relaxation with the churning of book pages and of a book. So that's the first idea. So the second tip would be read to a child. And I know often not all of us have a kid at hand that they can just grab and be like, come on, I'm gonna read you a story. But maybe you could volunteer somewhere. Maybe you have nephews, maybe you have nieces, maybe you have neighbors who have younger kids, maybe you have a friend who has a younger kid. Maybe you have younger cousins, just a younger child. When you read the book to them, most likely they're going to enjoy the story. Why? Because it's coming alive with you. When you tell them the story, they're going to enjoy it. And they're going to have fun, they're going to laugh, they're going to ask you questions. And every time you think of that book, you're going to think of that fun time you had with them, one or various children. Because it's always so much fun to see the glee and the enjoyment of children being completely swept away into the story because they don't know it's an author who sat down and wrote this book. They're seeing the characters in their minds and they're imagining the journey these characters are going through, and they're going through the journey with the characters, and you are going along with them as the most important role as the narrator. That's really important. So the reason why I say this is because even if you don't read for yourself, more often than not, the next time you pick up a book, you're going to associate the book and the narrative with fun times and even childlike glee. So maybe, just maybe, reading a book to a child might awaken that childlike glee and wonder inside you. So that is tip number 2. Tip number 3 would be to set the ambiance. That means kind of set an area for it. What do I mean? Let me explain. So maybe you think that you're not a reader. You're like, I'm not an avid reader. I don't need that. And no, I'm not telling you by any means to just go separate a room in your house or in your apartment for just books. Because if you're not an avid reader, that makes no sense. Allow me to explain. All you need is a chair, a blanket, probably a pillow, and a lamp. That's all you need. I'm sure we all have a little chair that's for visits, or a little chair that doesn't go with the dining room, or that does, who knows, or a little grandpa chair where you watch TV sometimes. That can be your reading chair. And it doesn't mean that you have to set a whole part of your life apart. Just set a little corner with the chair and the light. Maybe leave a book there every so often. It doesn't mean you have to sit every day and read it, but if it's staring at you, you might go, well, maybe one chapter today, and that's a step. Allow me to give you another example. So let's say you've kind of had a long week, and your friends say, hey, let's go out dancing. And you're like, no, I don't feel like it, guys. But your friends go, come on, you've had a long week, you deserve it. And you're like, okay, well, because my friends are inviting me, I'll try. And you start getting ready, you take a shower, you put on your outfit that makes you feel good, you put on your makeup or you put on your cologne, you paint your nails, you get ready. By the time you're at the door, you're thinking, you know what? I am ready to go dancing, and I'm gonna tear up that dance floor. Do you get where I'm going with this? It's kind of the same tactic. If you just set a little corner with a light, maybe you might be interested in using that little corner every now and then. Just an idea. So tip number 4 is read your favorite movie or series. And no, I don't mean the subtitles. That's not exactly what I mean. You probably, most likely, if you have Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, or any kind of streaming service, or if you like to go to the movies, you probably have a favorite movie or series. And guess what? 98 to 99% of those come from a book. A lot of them come from book series or from graphic novels, Marvel, or they come from classic book. For example, if you like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, that has an original story. If you like Alice in Wonderland, that has an original story. If you like Marvel, if you like all Marvel movies, the comics have so much more world in them. Even if there's a slight moment in the movies where you're like, I wonder what happens with that character. They probably have their own comic or their own world, their own story. Star Wars has their own novels, comics, books, all kind of stuff. So that might be an easier leeway into starting to read. So let's say you think, well, I already know the ending because it is your favorite movie or your favorite series. Think about it this way. 1, you get to experience the journey all over again. And 2, there's probably a lot more detail in the book than there is in the movie. Or there's an epilogue maybe that tells you what happens with the characters afterwards. Or even better, let's say that it's your favorite movie, but you kind of wondered, you're like, man, I wonder what happened after the scene. Or, whatever happened to that one character that was kind of funny but didn't appear again? They probably have their own book. I'm just saying, you can dive more into the story. You can get more details and more information about your favorite characters by just picking it up. So let's say you're not a traditional book lover and you're not the type of person that can just sit down and stay put and read through 100 pages in one sitting, and I don't blame you. Not everyone can. There are other ways that you can get into books, such as audiobooks. You could have someone read to you. That's always exciting. Here's an example. When I was in Puerto Rico, I lived through Hurricane Maria, and my family, sadly, we didn't have water, we didn't have power, we didn't have TV, internet, none of that. I'm very much an avid reader. My mom, not so much. And she loved Turkish telenovelas. During that time, she didn't have telenovelas. So I would take my books and I would read them out loud to her. She told me that I became her new telenovela. And my job, when she was washing clothes or cooking, was to hold a flashlight to help her see and hold a book and read to her. And I have the fondest memories of that time. So maybe that might happen to you. So I wanted to point this out because I feel like it might be a common misconception. Oftentimes, avid readers or bookworms or people who really like to read are thought of as people who love any and every type of book, and any book we pick up, we just read all the way through in one sitting. That doesn't happen often. Avid readers go through many, many books. We often DNF books. For those who don't know the term, it means do not finish. It happens more often than you would think. A lot of readers are sometimes a picky audience, or they're very hard to please because we've read a lot, because we identify sometimes cookie cutter plots, or we know characters that we're not fond of, or maybe the writing style of the author just doesn't click with us. We just toss the book aside. And it's not in any bad way or to offend anyone. It just doesn't resonate with us. It's not a story that we feel we connect to, so we just put it aside. That's okay. Maybe you pick up a book and you're like, well, this book doesn't connect with me, so that means I'm not a reader. No, that doesn't mean that. It probably means you didn't connect with that author or that story. So don't be ashamed to say, well, this is not really me, I'll just put it aside or give it to someone else. That's okay. It just wasn't your style. Which brings me to tip number 5, buddy reading. What does buddy reading mean? It means that you read the same book or the same material with a friend or a loved one or a neighbor or a classmate or someone you know. Or you know what? You can even read it to your dog. That works too. They pay attention. Dog, your cat, your chameleon. If your animal's there, they love you, right? It counts. It definitely counts. Buddy reading. So it means you pick up a book that you are both interested in and you start reading it. Whether it's together, whether it's in the same room, you can take turns reading. One person reads a chapter, one person reads another. Depending on the book you pick up, there's probably going to be different characters. So maybe you read the lines of one character and your friend reads the lines of another. The essential idea is that you read the book and then you come together with your friend and you talk about what you thought about this character, what you thought about this chapter, what you think about the book as a whole so far. You can talk about what you think is going to happen, or where you think a plot is going to go, or what do you think is going to happen with one character, or which characters you think will fall in love. All these fun details. And keep in mind what I said before. If you don't like the story, or if you don't feel like you're clicking with it, don't ever feel guilty about saying, hey, this is not clicking with me, let me talk to my friend. Not every book is for everyone. That's why there's so many different books in so many different categories. I'll give you an example. I'm not the biggest fan of thrillers, mysteries. I don't dive truly deeply into those because I'm not a fan of those. I get scared very, very easily. That's why I've never, ever picked up a Stephen King book. My boyfriend loves them. I, however, am not the type of person to read them. I stay very much in YA, which is young adult, and I stay in fantasies and romance and whimsical tales. That's my category. And I respect that others might not like it, as I might not like other categories, and that's okay. Whatever material you pick up is valid. Any kind of reading is reading. So to give you guys a recap, the 5 tips were: 1. Find an interesting story or topic. 2. Read to a child. 3. Set the ambiance. 4. Read your favorite movie or series. 5. Buddy read. Read with someone else. That's all I wanted to share for now. I hope you guys get reading. If you do, let me know in the comments below which book you're interested to pick up, or if you have any more tips, or if you have any questions on how to get started. Okay, that's all I wanted to share with you guys for now. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Thank you. Mwah.